Station 51, engine 27, engine 32, truck 105.
You're listening to The Fire Break with Steve Wolf.
Welcome back to The Fire Break. I'm Steve Wolf. As you know, The Fire Break is sponsored by Team Wildfire, developing innovative technology for fire control. Speaking of fire control, we've got Captain Ed Monroe with us today. And Ed is with the LA County Fire Department. What an American guy. I mean, 16 years with the LA County, grew up in Texas. Dad was in the Air Force. Like, it doesn't get more American than this. Welcome to the show. How are you today, Ed?
Thanks. I think I'm at 17 years now. I'm gonna have to update my info. I was just thinking about that.
Right. And probably next year it'll be 18.
Right?
Just guessing. Yeah. So I saw on your bio that you list that you're very involved in raising awareness and speaking on the issue of PTSI, which I had formerly known as PTSD. Are they the same thing?
In my mind, they're the same thing. Although I'm sure that there are people much better versed in that than I am, who would be able to tell you a much more concrete distinction. But it seems like in the terminology of things, they've gone to PTSI because post traumatic stress um, as an injury definitely fits it much
Mhm.
better than as a disorder.
Absolutely. Yeah. What a great way to think about it.
And because I know for myself, I mean, like with the things I've experienced at work and on the job, and that other people have experienced on their jobs and at work, and then maybe not even at work, and maybe it's just at home or whatever. But um, it's. I think it's better served that people frame it as an injury because it is. Nobody goes out looking for it, and then nobody goes out and just develops it all on their own without something happening.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and a lot of people, say that in terms of brain function, it is just like an injury.
Hmm.
Um,
That's how I've had it described to me, and it seems to fit.
yeah, okay. You know, you're a few years younger than well back when I was riding an ambulance, you might see someone, heads get cut off or whatever, and they just told you to go home and walk it off.
Hmm.
Right? It was
In the old days, they did, and in the really old days, our grandparents who went to war, they called it being shell shock, and back then, they really did those guys a lot of disservice and told them they were being weak, and then Uncle Bob would go sit in the corner at the family functions, and you wouldn't want to move around him too quick, or he'd start yelling at people or whatever, or he was self-medicating with alcohol or other things, and people thought he was unstable, and we definitely didn't have a good understanding of it back then. And I think just even in my career, our understanding of post-traumatic stress and as an acute critical incident injury or as an accumulated stress injury, we've come a long way in that.
yeah. You know what? And I'm curious if they've changed it from a disorder to injury. What about the P in there? Is it always post, or what happens when you are in the process of experiencing this and you're having, you're symptomatic right at the moment because you're seeing something? It doesn't have to be a week later or a year later, does it?
Well, it doesn't have to be a week later, a year later. I mean, I know in the things I've experienced, uh, you start feeling it almost immediately, but it's still going to be post. I mean, you don't start feeling these types of things before it happens. Um, I mean, even therapists who, and clinicians who, help people like, like me and they may not have ever been on scene in one of these things, but they hear these stories and they internalize the stuff and they get exposed to it. And it's always after the exposure.
Yeah.
So I think it's fair to call it a post. It's never going to be a an injury ahead of time.
Right, but it could be during.
Right.
If an incident is ongoing,
Sure.
so you've been on multi-day recoveries or
Hmm.
yeah, interesting. So What about on the pre side though? Are there, mental inoculation things that you can do to make yourself less susceptible?
I don't know if that there are mental inoculation things you can do, but I do think that there are things that you within an organization can do to make people aware of that these kind of things can happen. Um, in my department, we have a very large peer organization. We have over 200 peers of our members who've been trained to be peers and help talk to us or with other members who are struggling with whatever it is they've seen or experienced. And that doesn't have to be job related. It can be stuff at home. It can be, and you name it, for the things that really people struggle with in their lives. We have over 200 peers that are out there like, hey, we'll help. And we put word out to, our, we have 3,000 badge personnel in my department.
Yeah.
We're large. And I think it's good that we put the word out there. Now, does necessarily everybody like buy into that or believe that that's going to help them? No, that's not realistic to think, and it is the fact of life that not everybody buys into it. And peers in and of themselves aren't therapists. That's important to remember too. But you know, a, a peer can help identify. You know what? You may need to speak with a clinician. You may need more, professional help, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's the first step in somebody knowing. So, in terms of preparing for some to be exposed to something like that, I think that the first step is letting people know in the first responder world or the military world, hey, you're going to see some crazy things that regular people don't see. You're going to do some crazy things that people don't do. So in light of that, you need to know that help exists when you start feeling it. And I think that's how you prepare, just through education.
Yeah. And I was thinking this morning about, how close do you have to be to an incident to be impacted by it? I think, every firefighter and first responder this morning, in light of what happened yesterday in Idaho with the firefighters being killed by a sniper as they're responding to wildfire, we all feel like we took a hit with that.
Well, I absolutely felt like we took a hit with that. That is an unimaginable thing. I can think of one other instance where a fire was set and the members from the fire engine were ambushed, and it was with Long Beach Fire Department on a structure fire down there. Um, and those guys, I can't imagine going through that. In the incident I was involved with, one of our own members went into a fire station, shot and killed his opposite, shot the other on-duty captain, went home, took his own life, and burned down his house. I was on that call, and I was close to all three of those guys. So in the world of firemen being shot and killed by whether it's somebody on the job or off the job, it is unfortunate that those things happen. It's terrible, and I can't. And even having been through closely involved in an incident that has similarities set myself, I was still just stunned that it happened. It, I'm speechless over it.
Yeah, absolutely. Huge, huge sadness in the country today over this. Um,
I'd like to point out today, as well, is the anniversary of the Granite Mountain Hotshots from the Yarnell fire. Today is their anniversary, and I don't want that to go missed either.
Absolutely, thank you for pointing that out. I look at the picture every day, but I never noticed the date on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are is there anything different now about the type of things that firefighters are experiencing than they might have a decade ago or when you started on the job?
I think the biggest there's a couple big differences. One of the biggest differences, there is a greater awareness over critical incident stress and accumulated stress. So there's more awareness there. Um, there is not this great big history in the fire service of members being shot at. That's relatively new. I can only think of a handful of times in where firemen have been shot at, whether it was in from riots or on calls like that, guys getting ambushed. But there's so few and far between. You have to really rack your brain, or you have to start Googling stuff to really start finding it,
Yeah.
because it's just not common, and most guys can't pull
Yeah.
up
Well,
more than maybe one or two instances off the top of their head.
right.
So when
Well,
something like that does happen, it is shocking, and it does make people stop.
yeah. Well, I'm glad it's rare enough that people stop, because there's certain crimes against people that happen so frequently that they're not even newsworthy anymore.
Well, this is definitely newsworthy, and I can't imagine those guys what they're going through today. I can't imagine what they're, from the guys directly involved to their coworkers and friends and family. I can't imagine what they're going through, and it is terrible. And from my own experiences, a number of those people, they've got a long way to go now. They're going to be reliving this for a long time.
Yeah. And what kind of advice do you have for them? As somebody who knows a little
Um,
more about this than most.
my general advice is, don't wait for the moment where you think you might need to talk to somebody. Um, you know, Firefighters and cops and first responders and military, we all have a little bit of this we're indestructible wiring in us. And we think we're doing good up until the moment we're not. And when we get to the moment where we're thinking, what, maybe I should start talking to somebody, at that point, you definitely need to be talking to somebody. There's no might about it. There's no maybe about it. Because I guarantee you, your friends and family have been watching you, and they all know you need to talk to somebody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, just like, there's fair commonalities, right? If you've gone through firefighter 1, firefighter 2, EMT, paramedic, like your training is all pretty similar. And
Mm-hmm.
you've all had a similar training. But with the person you go to talk to, right, with the therapists, their trainings vary quite widely, as do their experiences. Uh,
Absolutely, there is. I know in my own experience, I've talked to a number of clinicians, and some clinicians, they are um, very culturally competent. They understand the fire service. They understand law enforcement. They understand all this stuff, and they know how to speak with us. Um, I've spoke with clinicians that don't have a good grasp of that, and they struggle, and we struggle with them because we're not going to buy into what they're saying. We look at them and like they just don't understand. We're not going to do well if somebody hands us a piece of paper and 8 crayons and says, "Hey, draw me a picture of what you're feeling." And that's nothing that's going to do well for in the first responder role. Like, what do you mean? What am I feeling? You want to draw a picture of it? Are you insane? But that when you do find somebody that understands, um, I mean, it's valuable. We're a group of people that don't take well to people from outside our small little circle coming into it and letting them see kind of behind the curtain, so to speak.
yeah,
So it takes a little bit. It's hard to get somebody that we trust to do that, and then trust even more with ourselves.
sure. Uh, I wonder if there are folks who've gone from, the fire community or first responder community and gone on to become clinicians.
There have been a few. Um, I'm maybe thinking about that when I retire. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. That's going to take some work. It's going to take me going back to school, which is something I told myself I would never do once I graduated from college the first time. But we'll see. I think that there is definitely a place for that, and I think that somebody with a background in any of in any first responder field who became a clinician would have something very unique and valuable to offer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. Let's talk about the LA fires for a minute. Is there any chance that there's a single a firefighter involved in that who, isn't suffering from that? Like that was trauma on a department level, not at a fire station or individual firefighter level.
That's hard there are going to be those members of those departments who were living in those areas who are greatly affected. There's going to be those members of those departments who've been in those neighborhoods for their entire career, um, who have, a lot of emotional investment with those residents, and because they were in their districts and in their areas. And there's just going to be those guys who go to those fires who've never seen something like that before, and they're going to get blown away by it too. And I think that no matter how it happens, it happens. Um, I've told, if I've told one guy, I've told 1,000 guys. You know what? Your trauma, especially accumulated trauma, critical incident trauma, it's not a competition. Trauma is trauma, and if you're struggling with stuff, you're struggling with stuff. And there's nobody out there to say or to question it or to say, hey, what's your deal? If you're truly struggling with stuff, you know what? That's legitimate, and you need to get help. We have way too many law enforcement officers, way too many firemen, way too many, military veterans who commit suicide, and then these guys aren't reaching out for help, and they need it, and they need to know that help is there for them.
Yeah, and particularly those numbers climb after people leave the department that they're with, because even if they might not be seeking out help, at least they have peer support and being around their buddies and things that do mediate somewhat. But then when they retire, they lose that circle of support, and that's when they're most at risk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they should have retirees days once a week at the department, and just the people who've left the department can come back and just hang out with their peers.
You know what? Our I don't know about other departments. I've got to think that happens. I know in my department, different retiree groups get together. I know up here where I live in Idaho. There are a couple different groups that get together in some of the larger cities here in Idaho, even from my own department, because so many guys retire up here. But I show up and say hey to the retirees when I'm in town to do it, and I think that's fun, and I enjoy doing that. And one day when I retire, I'll settle down into an area where there's one of these groups, and I think it's a great way for guys to still feel like they're part of the loop, and they're seeing some of their peers and some of their friends from when they were on the job, and they can still swap those stories, and they can still be there as a resource for each other and lean on each other, and I think that's important.
Absolutely. How did you end up in Idaho? Oh, and
Well, that's a good question. I have family that lives up here, and my daughter was going to school up here,
okay.
and I'm able to work out my commute for traveling down to LA County from here, and easy enough.
How much of a commute is that?
Well, I try to work 6 days in a row, and then I'll take like 6 days off. So I fly maybe 5 times a month.
You're racking up the flyer mileage.
I've got a few.
That's great. Very great. So you haven't changed departments, just residences.
Just residences. I love it. LA County Fire Department's a great department. Um, we do a good job with a lot of things, and like and like some departments, I'm sure we have areas of opportunity where we can get better. But um, you know what? It's a great group of people that I work with, and I've seen a lot of our members do some really great things. And I'm proud to be a member of this department.
What when did you get the bug and decided that you're going to be a firefighter, let alone
Oh,
know?
I was in my mid-20s, and it took me 9 years to get hired. So back then, it was hard to get hired. Tests weren't offered very often. The LA County test was only offered like once every 7 years was when I took my exams, which was like the first one that was offered to me. I took it, and a couple years after I took it, I got pulled off the list because I had just missed one before when I started looking at getting hired. And whether it was lucky or whether it was God, depending on how you want to look at it, I ended up here, and I feel extremely fortunate.
What have you seen, technology wise, changing in the last 17 years?
Oh, breathing apparatus has changed a lot. Our fire engines have changed a lot. Um, Obviously the trucks have changed. Extrication tools have changed. We're starting to use a lot more um, computer aided stuff on fire weather forecasting, predicting where brush fires are going to go. I know that our chiefs, when they come in on larger fires and take over as incident commanders and ops stuff, and they'll start running computer simulations on where they think it's going to go and kind of project out, maximum acreage and that kind of thing. And I think that kind of stuff is super interesting.
Yeah. And how common do you think uh, this kind of technology is greeted well with curiosity or seen as, another new thing you've got to get used to?
It's a little bit of all of that. Lots of guys become firemen not because they were into getting into high tech tools and stuff. They just wanted to go, whether it's go help people. They're really interested in paramedic stuff, or they just wanted to go into they're adrenaline junkies wanting to go to fires. Every time technology changes, there's a little bit of I liked it the way it was, or I hated it the way it was, but I hate change more. Or, the old saying is, what a fireman, the two things firemen hate is the way things are and change.
Right. Right. And that, we hear expressions like that, around the fire community, but they're probably not the only community that, is resistant to change.
Sure.
Some people go out and seek change, and a lot of people avoid it. So
I
I like,
think that I think that most people in my department actually do a lot better with change than we give ourselves credit for, but it's
I would imagine,
still something to laugh about.
and I would think that maybe as the average age of departments gets younger, as we see more retirements, they'll
Hmm.
be even more embracing of change, because to the younger firefighters, these new things aren't change. These are the things that they grew up with,
Absolutely.
right? It's just bring the Nintendo to work or whatever. Fire command game. Interesting. What do you think are the things that are most important to talk about when you go and you're speaking publicly on PTSI?
My You know what? I'm not the most eloquent speaker in the world. Um,
You
if
don't
I'm
have to be,
speaking,
right?
if
Like you're just
if I'm
like it
speaking to
is.
1,000 people and I put
Yeah.
999 people to sleep and I reach one guy and he understands that he's not alone out there and he doesn't have to stay down in the bottom of this dark hole because somebody else will climb down there with him and help him until we can get out. That's all I really care about. I want to make sure that anybody who's struggling with the types of things I've struggled with knows that they don't have to face that stuff alone. Because to me, that was important. When I realized I wasn't alone, that was valuable to me and it was meaningful to me.
So you talked about reaching that one person. What do you think the things are that you say that reached people?
I think when people listen to your story, see that you're being genuine and transparent, that you're being real with them, that you're not just up there telling just some kind of war story, but you're telling them how it affected you, the things you went through. Um, the ways that you've recovered, the ways you can still the way you still struggle to recover.
Yeah.
That stuff doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. I think that's the kind of things that that people who are struggling with need to hear.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people experience, going back to that time involuntarily, like you just find yourself back there.
Mm-hmm.
And with time, it becomes a place that you can visit if you want to, but you're not stuck living there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because sometimes there's benefits to visiting places when you can go as a tourist, and it no longer feels like a war zone. Then you can observe and learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I imagine that when you speak at large groups, people occasionally come up to you and they say, what something you said just really resonated with me.
Those are the ones that let me know I did the right thing, and I'm really grateful for those, because that way I know that I wasn't wasting everybody's time. I don't want to waste people's time. I
Sure.
just want to help the people that I can.
Yeah. And so when people come up to you after and they say something, resonated or
Mm-hmm.
they related to it, are there particular things that you've said that seem to resonate with people more often?
You know what? Most people don't tell you what you said. They just tell you that, hey, I was the one guy you didn't put to sleep, and I appreciate you being here.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Interesting. That must be incredibly satisfying.
I think to me, it's what matters.
Yeah. Because when you're responding on a call, you're helping the people whose house you're showing up at, but you're probably not going to see those people again.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're not your coworkers, your peers.
Yep.
Right? They're your customers in a sense, your clients.
Unless they're regulars, then you see them all the time.
Hopefully not on a structure fire, right?
Hopefully not. But I've had regular medical patients where, you see them every so often, and one day it's their house that's burning. Like,
Right.
oh, this is.
You got to tell me about this quilt behind you.
So this quilt is. Here, I'll show it to you.
Yeah, please.
I had a bunch of T-shirts laying around because we all accumulate a bunch of T-shirts, and they tended to sit in the closet because I don't normally wear them around. But my sister, she was saying a neighbor of hers makes quilts, and she wanted an idea. I'm like, well, I'll give you a bunch of fire T-shirts if you want to make a quilt out of that. So I think I gave her like 60 T-shirts I had
Wow.
from the years I've been on, and they cut them apart and turned them into this quilt. It's great.
It's amazing. How big is the quilt?
Oh, it's pretty big. It'll probably cover a queen size bed.
So she used all the shirts?
Yeah, they used them all.
How old do they go back?
About 17 years.
Wow. So you're averaging like 3 shirts a year.
Probably. I haven't bought any shirts in a while. This was kind of me purging my closet. I had them all just sitting in there. I'm like, hey, I gotta do something with these things.
That's really great. That's really great. Well, they did a
So if you
nice.
got a bunch of fire shirts laying around, especially if you think it's excessive, 60 shirts to make about one queen size quilt. So
Okay. So probably 80 for a king size, right?
yeah, maybe. Depends on how they
There we
do
go.
it.
That's the takeaway from our episode, right? How many shirts? How many shirts per queen size versus king size?
Right.
Yeah, right. That's good. What are some other things that you would like, young firefighters to know coming in?
That it's a great job. It's unlike anything that you're going to experience really in the normal world. You get to help people, which is great. You get to work with great people that are motivated. I would say that as a young firefighter, one of the most important things to learn and to know is that you have to be internally motivated a lot. There's going to be a lot of times people are not going to hold your hand to tell you how to do things. But at the same time, if you ask for help, you're going to get that help. But you do need to ask. It's not going to be well, yeah, we know you're not doing it right, but we're going to see how long it takes you to realize you're not doing it right. There's a little bit of that in the fire service, and ultimately, I think that's a good thing. You've got to be able to learn from your mistakes.
Right. As long as you're making mistakes that aren't hurting you or costing someone else.
Well, that's what training's for.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
different if you're on a big incident. Nobody's going to let you screw up too bad on a big incident if they're watching you. But when you're training, and we train all the time.
Yeah. And tell me, I guess you might retire in a few years.
Maybe we'll see.
Yeah. Or transition into another aspect
Yeah.
of what you're doing. Uh, what what impact do you think the 17 years of service and training will have on what you do next? Like, how does that impact your perspective on life?
I wish I knew what I was going to do next, but I don't really know. Um, I mean, it's easy to say maybe I'll go teach, or maybe I'll just go fishing, or maybe I'll just do whatever. I've heard all manner of stuff, and some guys, hey, what are you going to do when you retire? I have no idea what I'm going to do when I retire. It's tough to say. I would like to think that when I retire, I'll find something to do that's meaningful. I still want to help people, especially in the traumatic stress world. I think that's important. And I still want to continue to do that. But other than that, I don't have a great idea on what I really want to do.
Yeah. Right.
Spend more time with the family. I know that they've been. I've denied them my company for a long time, and I think they're kind of wanting me to be home a lot more.
Well, that'll be great for both of you. I mean, 6 days on, that's, basically gone a week at a time,
Mm-hmm.
every other week.
Yeah.
Wow. Tell me about being a chief, versus other.
I don't know anything about being a chief. That's a job I do not want.
Okay.
But being a fire captain, I like my current job.
Okay.
I don't think it's my favorite job, but I do like it. It is rewarding. I like being able to um, guide our day based on what our calls are and what our training schedule is and things you have to do. But I do like being able to manage my own day. I like being able to have a crew that's close knit and works well together and see what they accomplish. And I like being able to help people and manage whatever problem it is we're out there to go manage when we go out. I want to think that I think my favorite thing I've done on the job is I used to run inmate crews out in the wildland.
Okay.
That's probably had been my favorite thing. And in my department, that's a job that engineers could have. So I put in for that, and I did that for about 3 years, and I really enjoyed it. It was really cool to see what guys who have authority problems and legal problems and family problems and all kinds of, you name the problem, they'll have it. But to see what they can do as a unit, when you train them and you go to a big brush fire, and, hey, we're gonna go to work, and be like, all right, hey, that's pretty cool. These guys did a lot of good work and they helped a lot of people.
And a fairly large percentage of the Wildland crew, is inmate crews. And
Yeah, well, yeah, a lot in California. It used to be a vast amount. Um, the state of California now seems to be moving away from that under the current governor and everything. So I don't know what direction that's going to go in the future. I do think it was a great opportunity for guys who've had those kind of problems to really kind of like learn something and buy into a new future and a new life. Guys from my crews have done that, and now they're professional firefighters for either large state or large federal agencies, and I think that's probably one of the greatest things you see in those kind of programs is the even though it's a small percentage, that there is a small percentage of those guys who change their lives coming out of it.
yeah, no, I mean, being a part of a crew, having a mission, helping people, having a sense of purpose. For a lot of people, that's the key to the turnaround.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I remember a poster I saw in Florida, and it said, "We know what to do with troubled kids. Throw them in the ocean." And it was a program where they took, troubled teens, and they taught them to be rescue divers.
That's really cool. That'd be fun to learn.
Right? Yeah, I'm sure you've done some of that too.
Never with my job.
Okay.
I did a bunch of scuba diving outside of my job, but I've never been any kind of rescue diver on my job.
Well, I could tell you from my own experience there, it was almost never rescue diving, even though that was the name. It was always
Yeah.
recovery diver.
Yep.
Yeah, in the time it takes to suit up,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's not going to be people waiting for you. Uh, that's interesting. So the work with the inmate crews sounds really rewarding. Just not in terms of just the work you did for the areas that were burning, but the way you were able to really impact the people you worked with. And even if they had authority issues, it sounds like you gave them someone to look up to that they wanted to look up to.
I tried. You know what? I try to keep it simple. When they train you to be a you know a foreman or fire crew supervisor, they tell you, be yourself, and just communicate clearly with them. And I always told them, say, you know what, you guys, I'm gonna treat you like men because you are. If we have a day where I've got to go from being Monroe to being foreman Monroe, then it's probably not a great day for any of us. But
Uh-huh.
99 days out of 100, they wanted to learn stuff, and they want to do what you're telling them. I mean, they have to sign up for this. I mean, there's a number of people out there in the public that think guys get sentenced to, you know, inmate camp for hard labor and stuff. And it is hard labor, but they have to volunteer for that, and they have to be approved for that. There's nobody getting sentenced to go to fire camp.
Right. And what type of training do they get? Is it the same training?
Um, it is typical wildland fire training. They're going to learn how to cut line. They're going to learn, you know, watch outs. They're going to learn how to operate and service chainsaws. We're going to learn how to sharpen tools, Pulaskis, McLeods, shovels, whatever.
Right.
They're going to carry a bunch of stuff in their packs. They're going to go hike a lot. They're going to learn how to, anything in the wildland arena, they're learning it.
That's great. And so much more and more demand for people with that skill.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. It seems strange that like the demand for people who do that is going up, but the supply, seems to be going down. Maybe salaries has something to do with that.
Well, I don't know about salaries, but because inmates don't get paid very much, and that's part of I guess part of the political rub is it felt like taking advantage of inmates. I think the trade off is they weren't in a prison, they weren't on a yard. That's how they called it. They got to get away from that. They got to get out. They got to learn something. Um, they still got some money, but is it far less than what other wildland crews from that weren't inmates are getting paid? Well, yeah, sure, it's far less, but
I didn't
it's
know
a
you
totally
could get
different cost
less.
structure.
I didn't even you could get less than a regular wildland firefighter.
Now, I'm sure there's a number of wildland crews out there who think, man, we get paid nothing as it is. I can't believe those guys got paid
Right.
less than us.
Exactly.
Yeah, they didn't make very much, but they had other benefits.
Oh yeah, fresh air. Get
Fresh
outside.
air, time off their sentence, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, a lot of benefits there, and probably, come across seeing the same kind of things that your guys were seeing. That
Mm-hmm.
that they also might need some recovery help with.
Yeah.
So I think fresh air and exercise. I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to join me on the show today.
Oh, sure, no problem.
Absolutely. We've been chatting with Ed Monroe, 17 years at CAL FIRE.
Oh, Los Angeles County.
Oh, excuse me. I should probably edit that to fix it, but I'm not going to. But I will correct it to say 17 years at LA County Fire. Now, is that you wouldn't want to be associated with Cal Fire, or
It's two different departments.
I know it's different, right?
They're
But
just different departments, and I honestly don't know enough about the Cal Fire system to speak one way or the other about them. But I'm very proud to be an LA County firefighter.
well, I'm proud of you as well, and thanks for the great work that you do there. We've been chatting with Ed Monroe, LA County Fire, 17 years, but now a resident of the great state of Idaho. Thanks for your service, Ed, and we'll see you on the next show. I'm sure we're going to do this again. I'm Steve Wolf. You've been watching or listening to The Fire Break. We're sponsored by Team Wildfire. Till I see you next time, take good care of yourself.
Thanks, Steve.